All right, I see some folks posting in the chat. We're going to go ahead and get started to make sure that we respect everybody's time and start and end on time today. If you're as you're coming in, if you want to share your responses to these questions in the chat, feel free to do so. So today is our new user webinar part 2, a deep dive on data. I'm Brian Story, the Director of Teacher Engagement at ASSISTments, and I'll introduce myself a little bit more later. As a note, make sure that your microphone is on mute. You can feel free to share your video if you like, and then feel free to use the chat feature throughout to leave questions, comments, wonderings, etc. We'll respond to those in kind as well. And just a note for those of you who registered for the session, you will receive a follow-up email with a copy of the slide deck and video recording for your reference. And this session will be interactive. So you can feel free to follow along in your assistments.org account. We'll have some polls and just opportunities for you to share your thinking during the session today. And we do appreciate your participation in any discussions we have. We do have a small group today, so definitely appreciate anything that folks would like to share.
All right, my name is Carrie Moy, and I'm going to be the chat moderator today, and I'll introduce myself a little bit more later. But I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. But I want to talk a little bit about the goals for our session today. Our goal is really to learn how to maximize ASSISTments data, specifically to support student learning. So we're going to talk a little bit about the basics, as well as how to analyze ASSISTments data, and then how to use that data specifically to inform our instruction and to discuss it with students. And then we'll wrap up and talk about our next steps. So Brian, do you want to go in depth and introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Carrie. So like I said, I'm Brian Story, the Director of Teacher Engagement at ASSISTments. So I help to organize and plan out all of our professional learning for teachers and our partnerships with schools and districts. Prior to this work, I was a public school teacher for a decade in Washington, D.C. And in Norfolk, Virginia. So I'm happy to be with you here today and answer any questions you might have. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Carrie.
All right, so my name is Carrie Moy. I'm the program associate here at ASSISTments. And my job is essentially to help and assist in lots of different ways on the program team. For example, today I will be chat moderating. So if you have any questions, I can help highlight those questions during our discussion, as well as answer them in the moment if you're asking them in the chat, as well as providing you helpful resources as you're getting started with ASSISTments. I was in the classroom for 12 years prior to this role. I taught in Chicago, and I am a huge cheerleader when it comes to ASSISTments. It completely changed my classroom practice, and I'm excited to share it with you. And I'm on mute. I'm going to talk a little bit about what it is. And kind of give you some more details if you're not familiar with ASSISTments. So it's a free formative assessment tool, and it integrates with Google Classroom as well as Canvas. For me, it just saved a lot of time when it came to having a library of content that I can actually draw from to help my students with their specific learnings. It also fostered a growth mindset in my students, which I think made me really love the program more. What it does specifically with data is it's regular and timely feedback. You can use that to inform your daily instruction because it is actionable data. So you can quickly identify students who need interventions as well as students who are ready for challenges. And I think it just increased so much autonomy and engagement for my students because they could track their own progress. Specifically based in data as well, we have a lot of research backed on the impact of ASSISTments. It's one of 3 middle school math interventions with a tier 1 rating from Evidence for ESSA, as well as proven to show 75% more learning. So narrowing that achievement gap, which is so important, especially this next year, as we think about how do we support COVID recovery. For teachers, this is kind of the biggest draw because it makes teaching easier. Over 20,000 teachers use assessments. And it's basically, like I said, you don't need to scour the internet for problems because it has a content library of high quality practice problems. You get immediate data, so you can use that to make instructional decisions that are effective to meeting students where they're at. And it just focuses on students and students that need the most support. So the typical teacher routine is that you would assign content, your students complete that assignment, then you grade it, and then you use that data to inform instruction. I don't know about you, but step 3 was always where that system got a little stuck. So this is where I found the most help when it came to using assessments, because you have that content library so you can assign. Students then get immediate feedback as they're working through the assignment. So they can use that feedback to grow. And then for you as a teacher, which we're going to cover a lot today, steps 3 and steps 4, is that you can analyze that data report and then use that data to inform your instruction.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Like Carrie said, we're going to focus in on that data and using it to inform instruction today. So mainly steps 3 and 4. And we're going to go ahead and dive into step 3 here. And our framing is that we're going to think about this through the lens of a teacher. So Catherine is an 8th grade math teacher using assessments for the first time. And we want to consider what she needs to know in order to analyze assessments data. So first, Catherine needs a quick refresher on how to access the assessments data report and also how to interpret data. So just to clarify, whether you're using Google Classroom or Canvas, you as the teacher can access the data report either by clicking the embedded link in the assignment in Google Classroom or Canvas. And then you now have the ability to, when you're logged into your assessments account, if you're looking at the fresh new look, to click My Assignments, filter by class, etc., and find the assignment there. When you click it, you have the option to view report. So that's another way that you can access the report as well. And so now that Catherine's clear on how to access the assessments data reports, she needs to understand how to analyze the data to understand which students need more support and with what concepts. There are a few key data points that we think are most important, most high leverage. We know that teachers may not have a lot of time, and so we really want to help teachers zero in, including Catherine, zero in on what those key data points are. The first one is sort of class averages. And so that can help teachers to quickly assess whole class understanding on the assignment. Then we have the problem or standard average, and that will help the teacher identify which individual problems or standards need whole class review. And then the individual student score by problem or standard. That can help teachers to do those one-on-one check-ins with individual students to discuss their scores and reteach as needed. And finally, common wrong answers. Teachers can use these to facilitate whole class discussions around common misconceptions that students are having. We do have a new and an improved assignment report. And so this assignment report has a few different components. Some of them are new and some of them are going to look somewhat familiar. And so I just want to go live and kind of go into one of these reports and overview the different elements of them so that you understand how to use it. So here we can see the new assignment report. The first thing I want to highlight here is that you can look at the problems view or standards view. We'll come back to the standards view in just a minute. But at the top of the report, you'll see these student progress cards. These are going to show you where each student is in the process of completing the assignment. If you click them, so with not started, you can see the students who have not started the assignment. In progress, you can see the students who are still working on it and when was the last time they did so. Then you can see the students who have completed the assignment and when they completed it. Underneath that, you have the performance summary. And so this is a breakdown for each question. How many students were able to get it correct, meaning they got it right on the first attempt, correct eventually, meaning they got it right after more than one attempt, or incorrect, meaning they had to get help in order to move on. You can also filter this view to look at just one of those pieces of data if you prefer. And one important note here about this new report is you can always click the questions here underneath or in the detailed report and see the student view of the question, the correct answers, and to see that score breakdown again. Moving right along, and this part of the assignment report should look the most familiar. This is called our detailed report. Similar to our the old look of the assignment report, you'll still see these rows at the top. You've got each problem represented. Again, you can click those to see what the problem was. And then you've got the problem average, the average score across the assignment and on each individual problem across the class. You've got those common wrong answers, which again show you, for the students that answered incorrectly, if 3 or more of them picked the same incorrect answer, what that incorrect answer was, and the percentage of incorrect students who chose it. And then you've got your student rows, which details for each student the average score that they got, the scores they got on individual problems, and you can actually click these and see how the student did, including their number of attempts, if they used any hints, etc. And you'll notice that instead of symbols, we have these colors. So again, that just reflects if they got it correct on the first attempt, correct after multiple attempts, or if they needed help to move on. You'll also notice some little symbols here. You can always reference our scoring rubric right here at the top of the detailed report to see what these things mean. And so if a student uses a hint, they'll have a triangle next to their score. And if they have an X, that means that was an incorrect attempt on the question. The last thing I want to, a few other things I want to highlight here are that if a student uses a hint, you can see those, and you can also see the total amount of time spent. And then finally, if you're looking at a student score and you'd like to dig a little bit deeper, you can always click their name. And that's going to take you into the details report, which right now it looks basically the same as it's always looked. And this allows you to see the play-by-play for the student of how many attempts they made, how much time they spent on each attempt, what answers they put, and if they were correct or incorrect, if they had to ask for help to move on, and so on. You can reference the problems they were answering by clicking Show Problems here at the top. And you can also shuffle or choose different students by clicking Previous or Next, or clicking the drop down to select the next student you'd like to look at. And we find that teachers can find this detailed report super useful in those one-on-one conferences with students, or even in discussing with parents. And then the last thing I want to point out is if you've done some reteaching, or you'd like students to get another chance to work on the assignment, you can always click this triple dot and delete student progress, which will allow the student to go back to the same link in the same assignment in their Google Classroom or Canvas account and redo the assignment from the beginning. So just to recap, we have those student progress cards, which are going to show you sort of where each student is on the assignment. The performance summary, which is the series of bar graphs that shows you the summary of student performance on each problem. So the number of students who were correct eventually, or incorrect on each problem. In the detailed report, you've got the ability to delete student progress. You have that scoring rubric that you can reference if you need help interpreting the data that you see. And it breaks down what all of the different symbols and colors mean. And then anytime you click a column header in the details report, or even that underneath the bar graphs in the performance summary, you'll be able to see the details for that problem. So you'll see the student view, possible answers, the correct answer, and a different view of that score breakdown. In your report, if students have completed an open response, you'll see this assess box, or this assess link, and you can click this to access all student open responses on that question to provide a score and comment on those responses. And so just to clarify here, when you're on that scoring screen for open responses called the essay scoring screen, Student averages are only impacted on the assignment if you decide to score the open response. If you don't, it does not impact the student score. And you're going to want to make sure to have a routine in place for if you provide a score and feedback on open response questions for how you want students to go back, look at, process, and grow from the score and feedback that you're leaving on open responses. And then again, the student details report, which gives you that play-by-play, showing each student attempt, the amount of time spent, the ability to shuffle through students. And then you'll also have the ability there to, if you want to score and give feedback on an open response individually for students, you can do that there. And next, we have the standards report, which is another brand new piece of our new and improved report. And so I'm just going to go over here and show you what this looks like. So now, within any assignment, each problem that you've assigned is tagged with the Common Core standard. And so what you'll be able to see here is for each standard that's represented in the problem set, you'll see the number of problems in the set that align with that standard. And then you'll see the student average score across those problems that align to that standard. And so this can be useful for mastery-based grading or to do standards-based targeted review. But we heard from teachers loud and clear that they wanted access to a sort of view of the data by standard. And so we've provided that here. You also have the ability to download the report and upload scores to your LMS. So when you're in the live report, and I'm just going to go live and show this to you. In the detailed report here, you can click the triple dot and you can download the detailed report as a CSV file or upload the scores to Google Classroom or Canvas. Right now, you'll see it just says Google Classroom because that's what I'm logged into. But if you use Canvas, you would see Canvas here as well. One note about that for Google Classroom users, once you upload scores to Google, you're going to want to review and publish those grades to students if you want them to see the scores. And then for Canvas, those scores will automatically appear as grades in the gradebook. As a side note to that, we do recommend modifying or otherwise interpreting those scores prior to releasing them to students. And we recommend not using our scores directly as grades because ASSISTments is primarily about that formative experience, giving students a chance to practice and build fluency in the material so that they are ready for those summative experiences that are graded more specifically. And so what we want to do now is just give you a chance to sort of process what's in the assignment report. We don't have a live link, but we do have a PDF of an assignment report that Carrie just shared in the chat. And we want to give you 3 minutes just to take a look at this. And as you're looking at it, just note in the chat any questions, noticings, or wonderings that you might have. And we're happy to answer any questions or discuss any elements that you'd like to discuss. And so I'm just going to start the timer. And we're going to come back together in about 3 minutes. All right, we're going to come back together in about 1 minute. Again, any questions, wonderings, or noticings that you have, please feel free to share those in the chat.
I can highlight a couple too as well and give some voice to some noticings. So specifically zooming in on student 5, they noticed that, oops, I think you got to open up the PDF link, Brian. Awesome. So zooming in on student number 5, they spent 26 seconds on the assignment. So looking at that time spent, but received 100%. So kind of a wondering of like what's going on there. P2 Part A is giving most students an issue. So perhaps that's something to kind of noticing of what they might do. And then student 9 may be completely lost.
Oh, those are excellent noticings, absolutely. So those are all spot on. All righty, so I'm just going to go back here. Oh, there we go. So we just wanted to give folks a chance to, again, to post any questions. We'll give another 30 seconds or so if you want to pop any questions in the chat based on doing that review of the assignment report, and we're happy to respond to those. All righty, so we'll go ahead and move on. And so now that we spent time just sort of reviewing the data, giving you a chance to analyze what our new and revamped report looks like, we're going to get into how the teacher can take action with the data. And so going back to check in with Catherine, she's now confident that she can effectively and efficiently analyze ASSISTments data. And her next question is, how can she use it to inform instruction and share data with students to support their learning? We definitely recommend that you, as teachers, share data directly with students so that you can, make sure that they fully understand how you use what they're doing to drive your instruction. And before we kind of dive into some of our recommendations for that, we just wanted to show a video of one of our STAR ASSISTments teachers, Kim Kelly, sort of talking about ASSISTments and the data.
I'm Kim Kelly. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Skyview Middle School. I feel like homework is a very important instructional practice, but it's very frustrating trying to figure out how to collect it, how to assess it, how to provide that feedback to the students. Before ASSISTments, I would actually start class with, get out your homework and let's check it. And we wouldn't even start any math until 10 minutes into class. Here's what I need for you to do. You're going to get out your homework from yesterday, and you are going to check your answers. Where's your homework? You don't have it, okay? Are you done checking? Boys, are you done checking? Okay, does anyone have any questions? Any of them that you want me to go over with you? 161 centimeters. How'd we do? Feel pretty good about them? With ASSISTments, my homework procedures can be far more efficient. I can dive right into the common misconceptions, where the errors are. I know where we're struggling better than they do. 68% class average. This is the question we just looked at. The other question that was not so hot, 43% correct. The burden of finding the starting point is off of me, it's off of the students. We can rely on the data to help us identify the starting points for our discussion. I can launch my class with a common wrong answer or a problem where I identified a weakness. Every step of my lesson is driven in a meaningful way.
Is this line right here part of the perimeter? Yeah, so we need to fill it in and add them. That one too. That was the first common mistake. Forgetting to add in those two sides.
It benefits the students, but just as much it benefits the teachers. I'm able to identify the common misconceptions, which allows me to steer my instruction quickly to support my student learning.
And there's my correct answer, okay? So most of us were pretty close. Just a couple little common misconceptions that we were able to fix. Good?
Once you start using ASSISTments, students have immediate feedback, so they're learning while they're doing their homework. And then as the teacher using that data to drive the homework review process, you spend so much less time going over the homework that the bulk of your classroom time now can be spent on the new instruction. Plus, all of the students are invested. The conversation is around common misconceptions. It doesn't matter if they completed their homework or they don't have it with them, they can participate in the class. There are so many different options available, but I want to be sure that what I'm investing my time in is research-based and proven to improve student instruction. And I can see with my own students a difference in their learning. It has actually changed my class.
Okay, so just going back to sort of check in with Catherine. After she's taught Unit 3 and Lesson 1 in 8th grade illustrative math, she assigned a cool down to her students. And just like Kim, she wants to review those results and help plan for the next day. Maybe she doesn't have a whole lot of time to do so, and so she relies on that ASSISTments data to drive her instruction. Here's an example, a snippet of the data from Catherine's class. And so I just want to give you a chance to take a look at this for a moment and digest what we see. All right, and by the way, what we're doing now is sort of an exploration through some specific exemplars of the data. And as we go, think about each of the scenarios we present as a chance for you to sort of analyze. We'll start off just by modeling, how to walk through and interpret these data. Then we're going to ask you to share your thinking on the data via a poll and then in the chat. So those of you who are willing to share your thinking, we greatly appreciate that. Okay, so what can we notice about these data, this snapshot? We can see that one student has several dark pink bubbles, which means that they requested an answer. In addition, they only spent a total of 33 seconds on the assignment. And so in terms of conclusions we can draw, this student either needs more support to master the topic, or they gamed the assignment by pressing show answer without making thoughtful attempts. And in terms of next steps, you might decide to look at the student details report to see that play-by-play for that student and review these data with the student in a one-on-one conference. Given that the student spent very little time on each question and requested lots of help, they clearly did not make their best effort. And so you might then decide to meet with the student to reteach, delete their progress, and have them try again. One key thing that I want to note here is if you're noticing a student just kind of speeding through and clicking show answer, maybe they gamed the assignment, for instance, the messaging should be, I can see that you didn't put forth your best effort or that you just click show answer. So the next step is that you need to do some additional practice problems to demonstrate your knowledge. All low scoring results should lead to additional practice to build and demonstrate mastery. And so there's really no way for a student to get around, doing the work that they need to do to demonstrate their mastery. going back to Catherine, so she decided to assign 5 practice problems on finding the slope of a line, again from illustrative, and she wants to quickly assess whole class understanding so that she can efficiently review homework the next day in class. I want to give you a chance just to look at the snapshot from her data and take note of our problem averages and common wrong answers here. Okay, and in terms of drawing conclusions, we're going to take or launch a quick poll to see what your thinking is. The first question is going to be about what we notice in this snippet of the data report, and then what conclusion we can draw from these data as well. So I'm just going to launch our poll, and again, we appreciate as many folks as possible taking the poll questions. This is anonymous, but it's a great way to sort of get a pulse check on where everybody is. And we'll give you about 1 minute to answer the poll questions. Again, we appreciate anybody who's willing to complete our question. Oh, we got some responses coming in. That's great. I'll give another 15 or 20 seconds for folks to record their responses here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and we'll take a look at these results. Bring that back over to the screen here. All right, so we can see that for question 1, which noticing is accurate, everybody chose most students scored poorly on 2 questions, so that's correct. And then on the common wrong answer for problem number 4, the correct answer there is that 67% of students who entered a wrong answer chose 1/3. So this is great. I love this question because it's a good way to get a pulse check on how common wrong answers work. So just to repeat, 67% of students who put an incorrect answer chose the wrong answer 1/3. Thank you all for participating in that poll.
Ryan, I think it would be helpful to share how those common wrong answers are actually calculated. So like you kind of understand like where that why it's 67% of students who answered wrong answered 1/3.
Sure. So the 67% is the percentage of students who answered incorrectly on the question in any way. Common wrong answers show up in your report when 3 or more students choose the same incorrect answer, right? So that 67% is not coming from every student who completed the assignment. It's only based on the pool of students who answered incorrectly. Great point there, Carrie. I appreciate that. So in terms of next steps, the teacher may decide to, or Catherine may decide to pause classwork to review low scoring problems with students, paying particular attention to why those common wrong answers might have happened. And from there, they might decide to assign additional standard aligned questions on that standard as homework to give students more practice. Checking back in with Catherine, she teaches one section of Algebra 2 as well, and after teaching her lesson, she assigned practice problems, again from illustrative, on properties of exponents as sort of the independent classwork. This lesson reviews 8th grade exponent skills, and she wants to see if her students have mastered this concept. And her mastery threshold for the assignment is a score of 70% or higher. And so we just want you to take a look at this snapshot of the data. It's a student and their average score, and just share in the chat. What do you notice from these data, and what conclusions can you draw from these data? And we appreciate anybody who's willing to share in the chat what your thinking is. We'll give folks about 60 seconds or so to respond to the prompts in the chat. All right, Carrie, any noticings or conclusions that are coming in?
Yeah, a couple noticings that half the students are above that 70%. And there's a significant gap between the last two entries. So in terms of like percentage. And then maybe a next step is a short review would be recommended as a possible teacher next step.
Sure, all those are great. A few other points to consider here. So as teachers, we often, focus on those students who are maybe not meeting our mastery threshold, or their work is demonstrating that they need some additional practice or reteaching, which is great. We also want to think about, how do we provide enrichment for these students that are getting the 87 to 100? How can we push their thinking forward as well? It is important to note, as folks did in the chat, there was a very astute observation that student 2 got a significantly lower score, even than the other lower scoring students. So that might be a chance to do some one-on-one chatting or reteaching with that student. It might even be the case you could do a whole class review and leverage those high-performing students as well, or you could do a small group pullout just with the students that didn't meet the mastery threshold to give them some more targeted reteaching as well. But great responses there. So as folks noted in the chat, half of the students receive scores below 70%, below that mastery threshold. And so for that subgroup of 4 students, they probably need some additional support to master the standard. And folks did note those next steps for the teacher, that they might do some additional short reviewing. And again, I provided some other suggestions there, that they might do a small group review, or they could do a whole class review. It's really up to you as the teacher and what you determine is going to work best for you and your students. And so let's say the teacher decides to pull that small group of students, or even the whole class, back together to reteach. And then the teacher can delete progress for those students and allow them to retry and demonstrate mastery, maybe while you have the higher scoring students engage in some kind of enrichment activity to deepen their thinking around the standard as well. And with that, I'll hand it over to Carrie.
Awesome. So I just want to talk a little bit about like recommended use of data. We actually recommend that you use the assignment report feature to guide your instruction at least 75% of your assignments. Again, starting small is a really great suggestion to kind of build up to that. I found like the more I actually utilize the data in my classroom, the more likely students were to engage in the assignments and use the platform. Really sharing that data with them makes them notice how valuable it is, both for your teaching practice and for their learning, which is kind of how they see, okay, this is how you're using the data to meet me where I'm at. And so like you're modifying your instruction to meet their needs, and they'll see value in it as well. All right, so hopefully to wrap up and kind of our next steps, to recap today's session, our goals were, My apologies. Key question to consider. Thinking of a typical week, when do you think you might review the data report and for what purpose? So go ahead and share as you're thinking about possibly growing to that 75% of your assignments, where's your starting point when it comes to data? How might you review data reports in your class and for what purpose? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the chat.
And so we definitely, as we're waiting for folks to share in the chat, we definitely recommend picking a strong starting point, one place in the lesson where reviewing these data, communicating them out with students will really provide added value to that section of the lesson.
So I'm noticing that folks are putting into the chat that at least once per topic or standard, like typically every 2 to 4 days, and then reviewing at least once a week to kind of start reviewing that data. All right, so hopefully to kind of recap today, you really had a good solid for step 3, analyzing assessments data, and then hopefully step 4 as well, and utilizing that data information to inform your instruction and kind of discuss the data with students. All right, we'd like to go ahead and ask you to take a quick 1-minute survey for us. I'm going to go ahead and post that into the chat. We use your survey responses to help us build and grow as well. So we take in the same account with data. And we'll use your feedback to kind of make this session even better. So I'm going to give you about a minute or so to fill that out for us.
And as y'all are finishing, just to note again, we do take all of the data that teachers provide us to heart, and we use that to sort of drive continuous improvement of our platform, of these professional learning experiences like this webinar and our other webinars. So your feedback is very valuable. And so we do definitely appreciate you taking a moment to answer these questions for us. And before we wrap up and share some additional useful details.
Okay. Hope it's okay to kind of move forward and share these details with you as you were filling that out. I'm going to go ahead and link into the chat where you can sign up for our future webinars. I just wanted to highlight a couple so that you know kind of what's coming up. We have 2 new webinars in the month of September, which is pretty exciting. One of them is a 30-minute session around 5 common implementation challenges and our top solutions for using assessments with success. And so this is where we're going to share kind of teacher tips to really get students on board. Brian mentioned that routine, and so talking through kind of how to get started with that, and it's a 30-minute session. We're also going to have a new user part 3 webinar where we're going to actually talk about using assessments with success. There are also additional webinars in terms of part 1 and part 2 coming up as well in August and in September if you'd like to attend those. So there is a link to that webinar sign up page that you can use to sign up for any of these future webinars that we have planned. Finally, you can visit our website and take a look at, we have our help center, which includes lots of user resources, answers to FAQs, our webinar library, as well as the link again to upcoming webinars. And the other thing I want to share with you is staying in touch with us and joining our Facebook group. We have a strong teacher community on Facebook to kind of help each other out. So if you happen to have that, I would love it if you would join our community. We actually have a little raffle going on as well, asking teachers kind of their plan for using ASSISTments to assess students and specifically guide their instruction. So what you just learned today is how will you use, or how do you plan to use the data to guide your instruction for individual responses. So a lot of what you said earlier of like wondering what student 9 is or student 5 and student 9 might be in your individual conversations with students. All right, Brian, do you want to wrap it up?
Sure thing. So based on what you learned today, we just wanted folks to share before we wrap up, what is your priority next step for getting started with ASSISTments? We find that teachers sharing their starting points can be inspirational to the other teachers in the room. So feel free in the chat to share what's your priority next step for getting started with ASSISTments. All right, so I see one person said letting some other colleagues know about it. We definitely recommend that. Again, you can go to our website, to the Help Center and our webinar library to access current recordings if they want to view any of this material asynchronously, or they can sign up for one of our future webinars in order to experience it live and ask questions in the moment. So we definitely recommend that. All right, and then another teacher shared that they use standards-based grading, and so they plan to assign problem sets by standard, and also share this with their colleagues as well. So that's awesome. And like I said, definitely leverage our Help Center, our user resources, our webinar recordings, and upcoming sessions to make sure that folks can make the most of our platform in their classrooms. We want to thank y'all again for joining us today. You can feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions moving forward. Reach out to contact@assistments.org, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's session, and we hope that you all have a wonderful day, and thanks for joining us at ASSISTments.